Alright, so now's the time to make our carousel look a lot better, because right now it looks simply ugly. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to go into the block quotes.html, press Ctrl A to select everything, press Ctrl X to cut it, and now I'm going to edit a div with a class of container-fluid and background-warning. Okay. And I'm going to close my div. And I'm going to give it a couple of spaces. And maybe even give it an HTML comment. And I'm going to say carousel. Okay. And back here, I'm going to close that, or actually, yeah, I'm going to close the comment on the same line, and I'm going to give it another comment here, where I'm going to say end carousel. Okay, and in here, I'm going to paste in the code that I just cut. All right, so next, I'm going to press Ctrl S to save everything, and to make sure that everything still works, let's see if our site is regenerated. Click refresh, and we can notice a few things. We've got a fluid container that's gonna stay fluid no matter what, meaning the edges are going to be touching. If you compare it to the narrow container right here, you can see the behavior of this container is different because the elements of the container are almost touching the edges of the viewport, which is kind of similar to what we've got going on in the navbar here. So what we really want to try to achieve is to get the background stay, in this case orange, we're going to change it later, but stay visible at least. And we want the content to occupy this middle section right here, similarly to what we've got in the messaging app showcase section. So we've got our fluid container, and in order to even further contain the rest of the HTML of the carousel, we need to add a container, a plain old container class. So we'll do that by simply going in here and typing div class equals container, and I'm going to close that div right here. And now already we've got, let's just make it indented a little bit, and maybe we can do it like this. Ctrl S to save, back in here, F5 to refresh, and now I think you can appreciate the centering of our carousel. But our problem is not 100% solved, because at this time we've got the background and we've got the container here, but we don't want this element to go all the way to the left side. So what I'm gonna do here is first actually put everything in a row and give it a class of col-12. So to do that, let's just simply go here. So we are following the traditional approach of that was available to us both in Bootstrap 3 and is also available here in Bootstrap 4. And I think it's very important to get this, to understand this properly, because it's pretty much everywhere, and you need to understand how it works. So we're gonna close this div, the col-12 div, and we're gonna close the row, and that's it for now. So Ctrl S to save. We're not gonna have a very different visual effect with this, but I just want to get it ready for further improvements. So back in the code, I think we can give our row pt of 5 and pb of 5. Control S to save, just to have it from the outset, not touch the edges of our containing div. Okay, that's a little bit better. And now what I want to do is I want to actually improve the image. Let's start with that. Or maybe even we can, I think it's better to actually improve the carousel inner, because we've got this div with carousel slide, then we've got carousel indicators, so on, and then we've got carousel inner. So I'm gonna add to this carousel inner container dash narrow that we already used. Maybe it's not the best name there is. We could have named it differently, but I think it actually, well, it gives us the idea of what this class does. It makes a narrow container, so we want to have another narrow container in our on our carousel. So you can see now that the text has moved to the left here, and the reason for that is simply if we use the DevTools to inspect it, we can see that the container now indeed is a lot narrower than what it was. So if we hover over it, we can see it right here. So that's our carousel inner. Okay, so next what we can and need to do is center this element that's positioned left right now, and in order to center it, I'm simply going to go here and type mx-auto. Control S to save, back in the browser, refresh, and there it is, a narrow container. And you can notice that the edges of this narrow container are pretty much the same as the edges of this section right here, because, well, we are using the same class for specifying the width here. Alright, so next I'm going to do an interesting thing here. There are some utility classes in Bootstrap 4 that start with the letter W, W dash, and then a number. So they are quite handy because they actually determine the width of the elements they're applied to in percentages. So if I say W-25, that simply means width of 25% of the parent container. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to this image and I'm going to say W-25. Control S to save. Well, actually, in order for you to properly see the effect, I guess we can immediately add this class to all three images. Control S to save, back in here, refresh, and you see it now a lot smaller and a lot nicer. So all three images are behaving properly. So that's one thing that we can do. And the next is I'm going to actually edit classes of img-thumbnail and rounded-circle. And if you want to inspect what any of these do, you can simply go here and type, let's say, W-25. When you type it, pretty much the results are going to be pretty descriptive. So if you go right here and now just scroll down, you will find these W-something classes. And if there's a lot of text here and you're not sure how to find it, you can go Control F to get the browser find utility and then just type W-25 or W- and you will see it right here. So that's, you've got four results. The first one is W-100, So if you go down, you will see it repeated a couple of times, and that will show you the class, or at least something similar to the class that you looked for right here, in actual code, in practice, in an example that you can then cut and paste and use. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out of the way, and back in here, let's apply those classes. So we're gonna start with adding img-thumbnail, Control S to save, back here, refresh. Let's see which one is it. Maybe it hasn't regenerated yet, so there it is. So you can now compare the image without the img thumbnail class and the image with the img thumbnail class. Okay, so that's nice, and the next thing to do is to also add rounded dash circle. Control S, back in the browser, refresh, and there it is. And compared to what we had before, this looks pretty good, except that the image itself is a little bit wider. Its width is greater than its height, and the problem with that is you're gonna get a bit of an oval shape, and the only practical way to solve this is to have images that have the same width and height from the outset. So you begin with images, your raw images need to have the equal aspect ratio of 1:1 as far as the height and width. Okay, so let's just add these classes to our images right here. So I'm going to just paste over the other two, and now that we have everything saved, we could also update the container itself. So instead of background warning, we're going to say background primary, and we can also now go back to text primary and make it text white on all three divs here, and Control S to save, back in here, go refresh. Okay, and that's it. And instead of writing test, I'm going to write Jane Doe, Jane Doe, Jane Doe, maybe here Janine, and here Jackie. Okay, just to make them a bit different. And here we're gonna say lorem ipsum dollar sit. Okay, and we're gonna repeat this lorem ipsum text here, and we're gonna repeat it here. Okay, maybe even smaller. All right, so back in here, we're gonna refresh, and now we can see a lot of improvement, except that we still have this text covering the image, and since the video is getting quite large or quite long, we are going to continue with this improvement in the next video.